Inspire session on vocabularies for describing and enhancing GI-EO knowledge and skills for Inspire and Copernicus. That probably will be the last time that I pronounce the entire title. Let's just call it the Vocabularies workshop. So again, I already explained the rules. Let me immediately go to the agenda and use this as an opportunity to briefly introduce the objectives, aim, content of the workshop today. It's in fact a joint initiative of two bigger projects initiatives. On one hand, we have the Erasmus Plus project EO4GEO on the creation of a geospatial sector skills alliance. On the other hand, we have the ELISE action under the ISA Square program on enabling digital government through geospatial and location intelligence. So, but we are not going to talk about the full content of both projects or both actions. We're going to look at one particular aspect, the aspect of vocabularies for describing knowledge, for describing skills, knowledge skills in the geospatial sector, but even a little bit broader, also looking at the developments in the space sector, Earth observations. So that's the content of today. It's a joint initiative of those two projects because they both are dealing with the development, use of those development, preparation, implementations of those vocabularies. And what we will do in the second part of the workshop is to show you some tools that can be used for preparing, managing, creating that vocabularies, but also for taking advantage of those vocabularies in a set of different use cases. But we will start the project with the workshop today with two smaller introductions to the two projects. So first, Milva Carbonara of Physics, she will explain what the EO4GEO project is about. Afterwards, it will be Lorena Hernandez of the Joint Research Center that will introduce very briefly the ELISE action. My colleague Danny van den Broeke will then briefly present how within the context of ELISE, but also maybe a little bit broader, how they are working on the development and use of vocabularies for Inspire implementation and use. Which in fact establish a link between task on one hand and skills. So my colleague Danny will talk about that. And my other colleague Mark Olisligers, he will provide a very short introduction to the ontology-based body of knowledge for GI and Earth observation. So the body of knowledge that we are currently preparing, reviewing, revising in the context of EO4GEO. Rob Lemmens from the University of Twente, he will briefly talk about the living textbook, which we are using as a tool for editing concepts within the body of knowledge. And then the colleagues from the University of Castellón, they will present the EO4GEO body of knowledge platform and the entire ecosystem of tools. So like you see, we have a quite tight schedule, a lot of presentations. In my opinion, they're all very interesting. But we also would like to foresee some time, especially at the end of the session, for some questions and answers, and also for some discussions. And that for that we will make use of the Slido platform. So, but again, we will explain how to do it. If you're not familiar with it, we will explain it at the end of the or after the presentations, because we prepared a small set of questions on which we would like to. But enough for me now. I suggest we immediately start with the first presentation. So again, if you have questions, please take advantage of the fact that we have a chat box. Just write down your questions. We will try to answer them between the presentations, at the end of the sessions, or maybe within the chat box itself. But we really would like to collect your feedback, your input, questions, comments, etc. So feel free to contribute as much as possible to the workshop. And now I suggest we start with the first actual presentation by Milva Carbonara on the EO4GEO project. So now.
Thank you very much, Glenn, for your introduction. Good afternoon, everybody. So I'm Milva Carbonara from GSIG Association, which is the coordinating organization of the EO4GEO project, and I'm going to give you, as Glenn mentioned, a short introduction on that. As you can see, EO4GEO is a sector skills alliance in the space geospatial sectors, which has as main purpose, let's say, the fostering the Copernicus user uptake. So the actual use of Copernicus data and services by the final users. It is a project which started, funded under the Erasmus Plus program in January 2018. We count 25 official partners plus 30 plus associated partners, but this number is increasing because we are increasing the alliance with new associates. Overall, from 16 European countries and representing academia, companies, and networks. We have a distributed approach to coordinations. So there is GZIG being the general coordinator, while the colleagues from KU Leuven are the scientific and technical coordinators. The colleagues from Paris-Lodron University of Salzburg are coordinating the education and training activities, while the colleagues from Climate Kick are steering the exploitation activities. Now, just to give you a quick overview of the framework in which the project was promoted, it is framed in the blueprint for sectoral cooperation on skills, which has the aim to improve the quality and relevance of training and other ways of acquiring skills, and this in order to make the skills more visible and comparable, because the final aim is to have people moving across Europe, and so there should be equal recognition of let's say, skills and competencies of the people in order to make them have better career choices, find quality jobs, and overall improve their life chances. So exactly, Sector Skills Alliances, it's EO4GEO, aim to tackle the skills gaps with regard to one or more occupational profiles. So this is done, in our case, in the specific sector of space geospatial, and through a coherent and comprehensive set of activities that we will see later on, which are relevant, of course, for the sector concerned. Important to mention is that other sectors have been funded under this schema, and with many of them we are trying to put in place a collaboration. And just to quote but a few, we have the automotive sector, maritime, tourism, constructions, and defense, for instance, with whom we also tried to establish collaboration. Also important to say that the space data geoinformation, so-called sector, so space geospatial, was among the first 6 pilot sectors selected to be funded under the schema of the blueprint for sectoral cooperation on skills. And in this sense, they were also, EO4GEO is fully part of the Copernicus Building Skills Actions, aiming to increasing the number of people able to access and use Copernicus data and information, and increase the supply of skills to stimulate the growth of geospatial related jobs in Europe. All this, in fact, directly supports the space strategy for Europe, because this strategy have still among its objectives to maximize the benefits of space for society and in general the EU economy. This by encouraging the uptake of space services and data, and supporting the research and innovation through also the development of skills required in the space geospatial sector. So what is needed in a blueprint project as EO4GEO? It is needed to gather the so-called skills intelligence, which is a set of data, analysis, trends, which overall give a view on which are the situation regarding skills gaps, mismatches, and also future trends in a specific sector. Possibly these are all analyzed by occupational profiles. So according to the identified gaps and mismatches in a blueprint project like EO4GEO, you have then to develop European core occupational profiles and related curricula. So which should include components of work-based learning and of mobility, so work placements possibly abroad. This in order to promote relevant sectoral qualifications and also certification and recognition for the reason I was mentioning before of mutual recognition and circulation of people across countries. But of course, to do this, to have this having a concrete impact, we need to identify the key actors enabling all the processes. So the policymakers, the businesses, trade unions, as well as education and training providers. So, because we need that the developed European core curricula are actually integrated in the national education and training systems. I already spoke about the skills intelligence. What we did at first in EO4GEO was exactly to perform this kind of analysis, and so to identify the supply of GI and Earth observation education and training, both at academic and vocational levels, to identify which is the current demand for GI and EO skills, and also to identify the trends and challenges that we are going to face in the near and later future through a technology and non-technology watch. So based on the assessed skills shortages, gaps and mismatches, we developed a GI and EO sectoral skills strategy for the development of skills. This brought us to the definition of the vision and mission of our strategy, which is on one side to foster the growth of the European Earth observation and GI sector, ensuring the workforce with the right skills in the right place at the right time, with a mission to ensure the strategic cooperation among stakeholders on skills development. So how are we implementing the strategy? Through concrete action that are now in the core implementation phase, and some of them will be further explained and to you by my colleagues in the following presentation. So through we are implementing an ontology-based body of knowledge in the space geospatial sector, a set of innovative tools based on the body of knowledge, which enable actually the stakeholders, which will enable in our intention the stakeholders using them to speak the same language in some way, and also based on the analysis we performed in the first part of the project and still ongoing through the analysis of business processes and related occupational profiles and tasks. We identified the most urgent and relevant skills needs to be covered by a series of curricula and a portfolio of training modules, which in our intention should be directly usable in the context of Copernicus and other relevant programs. Our methodology, our approach is going to be tested through a series of learning actions that we are presently designing for a selected set of scenarios in the three subsectors mainly addressed by the project, which are integrated applications, smart cities, and climate change. And of course, we want, as I was mentioning, that all our activities and approach have a concrete impact in the education and vocational training system in the medium and long term. And to have this ensured, we will, and already started to develop a long-term action plan that we are planned to be endorsed also at an institutional level to guarantee an effective rollout and sustainability of the proposed solution. So, in the long term, for the preparation of the long-term action plan, we are, of course, taking care of different experts, really important to make it effectively work, like the governance, the business models, the mainstreaming and maintenance strategy. And as I was mentioning regarding the endorsement at institutional level, we are planning to organize a final conference in autumn 2021, gathering all the relevant stakeholders and having the possibility to get feedback from them and endorse the approach for the long-term sustainability. Important, of course, is the engagement of the stakeholders, and that's also why we are trying to build the so-called network of networks. Of course, there are several ways to be engaged, also from a simple dissemination level through the, let's say, subscription to the project newsletter, or visiting the website to have access to all the relevant materials developed so far, or to the events to be organized or organized in the past by the project. Also, we are going to disseminate the results, of course, through papers and other publications, but basically to build this network of networks, we are also broadening the alliance through different activities which involve awareness raising, attraction of stakeholders, and of course, engagement. That's why I invite you to connect to the EO4GEO webpage. You can see here a screenshot of the main section where you can contact us to get involved. And there are several possibilities to be part of the game. You can join the alliance, subscribe to the newsletter, or participate as expert in the implementation and revision of the body of knowledge my colleagues will present in the next session, and several other opportunities that I invite you to explore, and then to get in touch with us, to speak with us also, how to deepen, to establish our collaboration. So I think for the moment I can stop. Thank you very much for your attention, and enjoy the next presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Milva, for this introduction. I don't think it's easy, or I know it's not easy to introduce such a big project with so many different activities in just 10 minutes. So, but you did great. Like I said, I propose we keep the questions until the end of the session. So I suggest we now move on with the next presentation. Lorena, are you ready for sharing your screen? And okay, great.
One moment. I will. Okay, this is not. One moment.
Yes, it
Can
works.
you see that? Okay, good.
Yes.
Sorry for not showing the video, but I'm afraid that if I put it, maybe the recording will go bad. So I prefer to just show the presentation. Okay, so thank you to all of you for coming to the workshop. My name is Lorena Hernandez, and I work as a project officer for the Joint Research Center of the European Commission. And today I'm giving this presentation on behalf of Francesco Pignatelli, who unfortunately couldn't make it. So the purpose of this presentation is simply to set the scene by telling you what ELISE is, what is the relation with Inspire, and why we are in this conference, and also to show some of the work related to vocabularies that ELISE has been doing. Okay, so what is ELISE? ELISE is an action that is funded by the ISA2 program. This is the European Interoperability Program, which aims at providing cross-border and cross-sector interoperability solutions for all public administrations, businesses, and citizens. There are 54 different actions within the ISA2 program that are tackling with interoperability from different angles. But ELISE, the one that I am representing right now, is the only one which is actually focusing on the location dimension. And for those who have never heard of ELISE, ELISE is basically the acronym that stands for European Location Interoperability Solutions for E-Government. Okay, the relationship between ELISE and Inspire is there since the beginning of the action in reality, because they are very linked as they are aligned with different European initiatives as the better regulation and digital single market strategy goals, the European Interoperability Framework, and also some specific actions of the e-government action plan that, by the way, runs in parallel with the ISA2 program from 2016 to 2020. And in particular, there is one action which states to accelerate the deployment and take-up of the Inspire Directive data infrastructure. So to this purpose, ELISE is helping in the deployment of Inspire in two ways. First of all, it is helping through its implementation, direct implementation. And in this case, it is funding and developing frameworks and open source tools, such as the Inspire Validator and Inspire Registry. Probably you have heard of them during the Inspire conference if you've been following other events. But also, maybe even more importantly, ELISE is trying to stimulate the uptake and the usage of interoperable location data, but also standards and technology that relate to location. And to do that, ELISE does it in a number of ways. First of all, it tries to set up pilots and applications that showcase the power of location in this sense. It is also issuing studies that look for evidence on what is the impact of interoperability, and more importantly, the lack of it in relation to different topics such as digital transformation, digital single market, and it also looks at more particular topics, like for example, I mentioned here the location privacy implications, and tries also to be like a technological watch, looking at what is trending and what could be of relevance for the location thinking, let's say. And finally, but not least, because actually this is the purpose of the presentation here, it stimulates the usage of interoperable location data through an activity that we have titled knowledge transfer. Okay, the ELISE knowledge transfer activity has a twofold scope. Again, there's the scope of providing new insights through new publications and research around the digital transformation and the role of location. But still more importantly, the goal of the ELISE knowledge transfer activity is actually to consolidate all the knowledge that has been produced through the whole action over the last years. And this is done in several ways as well. First of all, we are developing innovative tools to stimulate the co-creation and exchange of knowledge with third parties. In this sense, we are developing board games and workshop pack methodologies. We are also producing videos, online guidance, material, presentations, and webinar series. And we are also investing in vocabularies to arrange and to put a bit of order in let's say, in the knowledge of ELISE. By the way, this is just a small parenthesis to announce, again, relating to the knowledge transfer activities, that we will be hosting a webinar on the 22nd of June. You are all invited to follow it. It will be presented, by the way, by Glenn, the chair of our session today, and it will be around a very interesting topic on digital twins. So if you like the topic, please feel free to register. And finally, to close, the relationship with ELISE and the vocabularies also started very soon, actually even before of the ELISE action, as you will see later. Because ELISE thinks that the use of vocabularies, and in particular the use of common vocabularies, is a central tool to achieve the level of semantic interoperability, let's say. And also because having this vocabulary is very useful because they allow to be reused in a number of ways, and for sure we will see some of them during the workshop today. Maybe the most basic use case is the one of organizing knowledge, but not for that is less important because it's always needed. And again, the common vocabularies or vocabularies, however you want to call them, are even more valuable these days because they can be used as training data sets for all these new artificial intelligence powered services that are every time more ubiquitous, let's say. And to finalize, I try to list all the work that ELISE and previously the Arena Action had done around vocabularies. I will concentrate basically on the two more recent, which are the ones in the top of the box, let's say. There's the one on the Inspire implementation and use vocabularies with the update to the skills and the body of knowledge. I won't speak anything else about that because I do not want to spoil the presentation of Dani that comes right after this presentation. And then there's the work on the Inspire synonyms, which is an ongoing work where we try to bring together other communities than to the Inspire one by trying to break down the silos, the semantic barriers of the jargon that is used in Inspire by looking for synonyms on how spatial objects could be called in other domains. And that way to allow for a better data sharing and to allow for retrieving the Inspire resources and making a better use of them. And just a final note on this work. This is probably the semantic interoperability level is probably one of the cross-cutting aspects that we'll need to take on board for making sure that the future European data spaces that are going to be implemented in the next months are working properly. So on my side, this is all what I had to say.
Okay, thank you very much, Lorena. I think the same applies as what I said to Milva before. Not so easy to present such a big program with so many interesting done in the past years, so many relevant things in just 10 minutes, but also you did a great job. And I think you really have a very good introduction to the more focused presentation of Danny now, who will further explain to what extent ELISE has been dealing with vocabularies on skills and knowledge. So Danny, please go ahead. We can see your presentation, so it works.
Okay, that's better. Now you can hear me, I guess.
We can hear you, but we see your Windows maps folder. So in the beginning it was okay, but now you switched to, yeah, so please, okay, now it's okay, but I think you should go. That's an expert, yes. And
okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Glenn, for introducing that. I will zoom in a little bit on what Lorena explained in her overview on the ELISE action. So part of the work under ELISE focused on these vocabularies for Inspire, vocabulary for implementation and one for use. And the central idea behind is to link tasks with skills. Okay. The outline of my presentation is, first of all, a very brief introduction of vocabularies. What are they? What are we speaking about? Then I will zoom in on these two inspired vocabularies, and I will give one example on the use of the vocabulary, and then I will conclude at the end. So what are vocabularies? Of course, you could mention many, many definitions. I just listed here one of Webster. In fact, they refer in general terms about a vocabulary as a collection of words or words and phrases. Mostly they're in alphabetical order, and especially also they have a definition for each of the words and phrases. Often you will also hear the term thesaurus or thesaurus, and you have also glossaries, which are a little bit more simplified list of words. The vocabularies are used in many contexts in our field. Of course, Inspire is one of them. ISA square is also mentioned, of course. W3C, OGC, many other subfields. But in general, vocabularies and thesauri are also used in the world of libraries. In the context of Inspire, we all refer to and use SCOS, for example, which is a kind of simple way to structure knowledge organization systems. But for example, at the European level, you have also EuroVoc, which is a multilingual, multidisciplinary thesaurus that covers the activities of the EU. At the right, you see three core vocabularies of ISA square, which are a little bit different, but which are very important for building this interoperability. There are 5 in total. They are real building blocks, let's say, for interoperable solutions. One is to define a data model, let's say, with the characteristics for persons, another for businesses. There is one on location, by the way, that was developed by people from the Inspire community, but also from OGC and ISO TC211. And there are more particular vocabularies as well, all to support implementations of e-government. Now, the work on the Inspire vocabularies did not start from scratch, as it has been pointed out already by Lorena, but it started in previous actions of ISA and ISA Square, namely ARENA, where the starting point was, okay, we have Inspire directive, we have guidelines, we have implementing rules, there is a lot of documentation, heaps of papers, but also the question from member states was, how can we do the implementation and how can we uptake and use Inspire? What are the tasks to be done to achieve that? So therefore, in ARENA already, the first work was done to identify patterns, start to list tasks related to Inspire implementation, identify actors, related or necessary knowledge, skills, and competences, but also assets and functionalities. So for the use vocabulary, for example, originally UML was used to also design the ARENA database and platform for knowledge transfer. I think we are currently evolving towards the use of BPMN and other tools or standards. There is the platform. I don't think there will be time enough to really go online. There will be other demonstrations from the site of EO4GEO, so I leave that up to them. But you can go online on the Inspire website where you have Inspire in Practice, which covers examples of Inspire implementations. You have access to tools and apps, and you see there the vocabularies mentioned as well, where you really can go and connect to the different definitions of the different activities and the required skills. An example of Inspire implementation task, what are we speaking about? The idea is to have a list of interconnected tasks. They are quite hierarchical. In total, there are 133 tasks defined for implementation. Several types of actors are defined, and for each of the actors also skill sets, so groups of skills to be covered. And in total, there are 18 assets and 22 functions defined. And of course, the assets can be extended by additional tools and additional assets if you want so. There is also a first glossary, so terms that are used in the context of Inspire implementation. On the right side of the slide, you see the overview. So it's a hierarchical identification of tasks. One example can be given is to provide and operate view services. These correspond to the OGC WMS services. And of course, there it's clear that in order to do so, it's part of a bigger effort or a bigger task, which in this case is called sharing of spatial data sets. So you need also to perform other tasks prior to this task, for example, including the definition of a data policy and access policy. And then you have, of course, the provision not only of the setup of the service, but you need also to work on the quality. You need to generate metadata. You need to do something on access control, if any. You need to validate the service, etc. So the idea is that you define the tasks for particular subtopics. Actors will do that. They have certain skills or skill sets, and you use assets and functions to perform the task. That's basically the idea. Now, there have been further developed in the use vocabularies also different tasks, but also we started there with defining patterns that are more specific ways to carry out a series of tasks. These patterns recognition or identification was based on a series of international European projects. And from there, these patterns were identified. And from the patterns, then a series of interrelated activities and tasks were defined for using Inspire. We do not use there the use case as a term because that's more linked to the real system implementation, while this is more at a higher level. An example or examples of patterns are given in the left down corner. For example, the use or reuse of Inspire specifications is a clear pattern, and provision of APIs is another one. And to the right, you see the example of Information Flanders, the SDI and Inspire implementation in Flanders, where they have developed on top of the Inspire and SDI infrastructure a series of APIs to do many aspects and many tasks, including securization, access to mobile mapping, etc. So companies then could use these APIs and the basic infrastructure to build additional applications on top of it to do particular implementations. In this case, it's spot booking to manage the public domain. In total, the use tasks of Inspire cover around 68 tasks. A few examples are given there, and they link and almost integrate in work processes and workflows. So the tasks are usually interconnected. Examples are given here. I will not discuss that in detail, but one example could be to collect user requirements and analyze the user requirements to define a new application, for example. That's an example of a task under the use vocabulary. Of course, this is done by different actors, and actors can have different roles, and they have certain required skills in order to be able to perform the tasks. And these are also defined in the vocabulary. For the use vocabulary, we defined 5 actor types, let's say. So domain experts, let's say SDI experts, application developers, managers, and end users. And of course, the type of knowledge and skills is depending on the type of actor. For a manager, for example, they should not know about the details about the technical aspects of the implementation, but they should very well know the work process or the workflow. They should have basic knowledge about the technology, what an SDI is doing, that you have metadata, services, etc. They should be also aware, of course, of the Inspire legal aspects, but then they should, of course, have more management skills to manage the workflow and the work process rather than the technology. That's just one example. So in more detail, we also tried at a certain point for the use vocabulary, not only to link the actors vocabulary to skills, but also to use the body of knowledge to define or to express these skills. Looking into the content, because the body of knowledge describes theories, methods, techniques, etc., standards, whatever, and also the related knowledge and skills in terms of learning outcomes. So what an actor should know or be able to do in terms of predefined verbs. The table I won't discuss here. This gives an overview for the 5 type of actors, and in fact at that time the old version of the body of knowledge of UCGIS was used. I will end with one example of the usage of these vocabularies in Belgium, where the National Mapping Agency, which plays a role of geo-broker, and also collects and executes, of course, tasks for Inspire implementation and usage, together with some spatial data providers. There we used the vocabulary to define the specific tasks for that organization and for the other data providers. We connected the knowledge and skills required. We also defined specific profiles, and we estimated human resources required. So this led to a short-term human resource management plan that was based entirely on these vocabularies. So at the end, 19 major task groups were selected from the vocabulary, and the knowledge related to that and the skills related to that were expressed in terms of the skills required and the levels required for these skills, basic, advanced, and expert. At the end, 6 profiles were identified, not exactly the ones that we have in the vocabulary, but more detailed profiles because it's a big organization, it's a mapping agency. And from there, so they defined also the skill sets for each of these 6 profiles. The conclusions for this vocabulary is that, in our opinion, the vocabularies are a key component in the context of ELISE knowledge transfer, ISA square in general. So the inspiring implementation and use vocabularies are those structured descriptions of patterns, task, actor skills, and assets and functions. They can be really used to support inspire duties and development or SDI in general. And we think that in the future, we should work further to better link these vocabularies with what is being developed under EO4GEO, so the body of knowledge that is in preparation. So to use or reuse the concepts there and also skills requirements which are being defined there. And with that, I want to end my presentation, and I'm very open to questions from you in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Danny, for this very interesting presentation. So I think so far we now covered the ELISE part of the workshop, and we will now switch over to how within the project EO4GEO we are working on the development of vocabularies and also afterwards the use of those vocabularies in several use cases. Now my colleague Mark Olijsleiders, he has a challenge to briefly present within 5 minutes, only 4, no 5 minutes, Mark, how EO4GEO is dealing with the development of a body of knowledge for GI and Earth observation.
Okay, thank you. So I'm Mark Olijsleiders, also from the Spatial Applications Division of the KU Leuven, and I'm going to present you the ontology-based body of knowledge for geospatial information and Earth observation that we are developing in the EO4GEO project. Okay, these are the questions that I'm going to answer because I only have 5 minutes. I'm not going to go over them here. They all get 1 or 2 slides, so I guess that will be okay. So the first question is, what is an ontology-based body of knowledge? First of all, a body of knowledge is a formal description of a professional domain. Ontology-based, that means that we have a conceptualization of the domain. We describe everything in concepts, and we create relationships between them. As a matter of fact, what we end up is more or less a digital twin of our professional domain. So what is inside this professional domain? It's quite broad. So we describe both scientific concepts, we have technology, and we have applications. And as everybody knows, geospatial information is linked to a lot of other disciplines, and you see that we have links to, for example, to physics, to explain the physical principles for Earth observation, or maybe to mathematics for the calculation of projections, but also philosophy and so on. We also have connections to technology. We need, for example, satellites to get Earth observation. We need, of course, information technology and so on. And then, of course, geospatial information is used in a lot of applications. The list is too long to mention in 5 minutes. So our body of knowledge covers that, and it has overlap with a lot of these domains, and exactly defining this edge is often difficult. So we started our work not from zero, but we built further on in the first case on the work done by UCGIS in 2006, which was an American initiative to create a body of knowledge, more or less for the same reasons as we are creating it in Europe now. We built on that first through the GI Need to Know project, and now we are continuing on it in the EO4GEO project. So the body of knowledge is ontology based, which means that we work with concepts. Concepts can be everything: theories, methods, technologies, legislation, and so on. It can be scientific related, it can be practical. Important is that these concepts are related to each other. And concepts contain also the description, but also skills, learning outcomes, references to other documents, and so on. This is an example. We have, for example, the sensor web enablement. which is linked to sensors, of course. It's linked to web technology, where you already see that we are on the edge of our own domain. But also this concept has sub-concepts like sensor observation service and sensor planning service, which then again are linked to other concepts and so on. And then, of course, these concepts are used in work processes, in data flows, and so on, where they are again linked to other concepts. For example, you need cartography to visualize your sensor results. And within each concept, we have skills described. So if we work on processes, we can see what skills are needed there. What can we use a body of knowledge for? In the concept of education and skills, we have a lot of applications where the next presentations will already give a practical demonstration on that. For example, on the curriculum design or on the job offer descriptions. We have tools that we are developing in EO4GEO. But the body of knowledge can be used for a lot of different tasks also, for example, to describe research, to document work processes and activities, maybe to tag software tools and so on. Because of course our domain is not alone in the world. There are other initiatives both inside our own domain. We have, for example, the Earth taxonomy. We have the USGIS body of knowledge, where they are doing a huge and a very important effort in a second version. But there are different subdomains of the geospatial where they are also building their own body of knowledges, and we of course want to link to that. What's just as important is that we also link to body of knowledges in related domains, so outside our own profession, but closely linked to it. And then, of course, there are also European initiatives which are important. For example, ESCO, where we, for example, in some of the tools, we use the soft skills defined there. And we are, of course, having this workshop together with the Inspire vocabularies. So we also want to have links there. The whole idea in the end is to evolve to an interconnection of body of knowledges and ontologies, so we can describe things which are much broader than our own domain. I guess that's it. So I think you will get this connection information in the end also.
Thank you very much, Mark, for this introduction to EO4GEO. Maybe more on the theoretical part, where the overall approach, the use case. I think it's extremely important to know what this entire work on the body of knowledge could be used for. And like you said, also the link with other related initiatives, such as ELISE, but also worldwide. There are other work being done by many different communities on which we will would like to build further, also connect. Let's now move on to the more practical part, where first our colleague, Rob Lemmens from the University of Twente, he will show the tool that we are currently using to prepare to fill in fact the body of knowledge. So the living textbook as a tool we are currently using, and we also hope that the community in the future will use to contribute to the creation of the body of knowledge.
Yes, thank you, Glenn. Can you see my slides?
Yes, it works perfectly.
Okay. Yeah, thanks a lot for the intro. My name is Rob Lemmens. I work at the University of Twente, Faculty of Geoinformation Science and Earth Observation, also known as ITC. And I will briefly show you how the body of knowledge, as already introduced by Danny and Mark, is being edited, so how concepts are created. Okay. Yeah, so the living textbook that we use as a tool to edit these concepts in the body of knowledge is actually makes part of a larger, what we call ecosystem of tools within the EO4GEO project. So basically what you see here in the center is the body of knowledge with all its concepts. And then there are a few tools around it doing viewing and editing. So we call that the body of knowledge platform tools. And then we have tools around it that make use of the concepts created within this body of knowledge. So we have curriculum design tool, occupational profile tool, job offer tool, and these tools will be explained to you also by Sven Kastelein after my presentation. What I will concentrate here briefly on is the living textbook, as you see here, and the find in book tool. So the living textbook tool is actually under development already independently of the EO4GEO project. We use that in our own education at our university. And so basically what we have is a book, a PDF, which was used before to teach our students who come into the studies in the first year about basics of geoinformation technology and Earth observation. So we switched to a digital learning environment where we actually have the text of the book migrated to what you see here in a kind of wiki environment on the left-hand side of this web application. And we have now a concept map here on the right-hand side. So all the concepts that are handled within the book are then also displayed in relationship with each other. And here you see kind of the linked data principles that we have applied to this. So for instance, here you see the concept of ellipsoid, and you can then also deduct that this is a sub-concept of, for instance, reference surface. And there are other sub-concepts. So we indicate that here as is a kind of, and in the body of knowledge in the EO4GEO project, we call that sub-concept. So mean sea level, sphere and geoid are also sub-concept of reference surface. So this is how you read this concept map. So from one concept following the arrow and reading the label to the other concept, pretty much as linked data is also organized. And then we here have at the bottom a conventional way of consuming the topics in a sequential order. So this is what we call learning paths. There are several options that we have in this kind of environment, and it is also quite suitable to allow this for knowledge engineering in general and knowledge sharing, and also, let's say, the domain building that we do in the body of knowledge in the EO4GEO project. So another tool that we are presenting is also the Find in Book tool. And this is a tool that is kind of a sub-component that is also used in the other tools, which will be presented by Sven and after this presentation. And you see the same kind of concepts that we have created within the living textbook tool, and they can then be visualized within this a bit of a different visualization. And this application also makes it possible to make the concepts persistent and to also have versioning. What I will present you briefly now, it's a short demo. I would like to emphasize that this is work in progress. And basically what we show you is a working environment of the living textbook, the body of knowledge. We call this the living textbook LTB sandbox. Ultimately, we will, through a versioning process, create a living textbook master, which then will be made available publicly. And so we have devised a versioning process, which also includes an intermediate living textbook body of knowledge version. So I will not go into much detail there because there is not a lot of time here. And then I try to switch now to the actual live demo of the living textbook showing the body of knowledge for the EO4GEO project. So I just switched now here. Let me ask to confirm, Glenn, if you can see my screen.
Yes, it works. It works very fluidly.
Yeah, okay, good. This is also what you already briefly saw as a kind of screenshot in one of the earlier slides, also by Mark. And this is, let's say, the overview of all the concepts. As you can possibly read here on the left-hand side, we are over 1,000 concepts. This is done by creating new concepts for Earth observation field, and also by importing concepts from previous projects, GI Need to Know, what Danny already talked about. But these concepts that we have imported are also being reviewed because some of them are outdated and need revision. So what you see here is a combination of GI and Earth observation. So this interface allows you to zoom in, zoom out. If you move your mouse over a certain concept, then you will see the direct relationships between these concepts. What you see here is a sub-concept. And you also see relationships like is similar to and proposed relations. So this is typically revealing that this is a work in progress. The proposed relation, as you see here, also will be ultimately then changed into a specific relationship being subclass or similar to, or there are also other possibilities of adding other types of relationships within this environment. Now, what I want to show you here is that the search facility, so typically here in the Inspire conference, we would be probably interested in spatial data infrastructures, right? So I'm just going to search for that, data infrastructures. And we have here spatial data infrastructures. So this is an autofill function that I'm using here. So when I enter this, then it will automatically zoom in and pan to that specific concept. I can click on it, and then I will get the description here. And what you typically see here is a definition, but also learning outcomes or skills that are connected to, let's say, this concept. So let's say the skills that are needed within for instance, a job offer to know this particular concept. There are also relationships like is a prerequisite. So to know what this concept, you also need to know another concept. So there are also other fields that we can see here. And these are the relationships that are also indicated here in the diagram. Another thing that I can do is do a text search. So we have another facility here. And then I can search through the whole body of knowledge, any text that, for instance, presents a specific word. So let's say, let's try Inspire. And then I will get all the concepts here that contain the word Inspire. So then I can click on a specific concept here and then open the map, and then the concept map will then zoom in into that particular concept. So this way you can navigate actually the things that have been created here. So let's see and try to edit a concept also. So let's go to yet another concept, for instance, something with geospatial industry. Also, that is part of our body of knowledge. So we can see here, and I've marked the one already so that I can easily find it back. So you can also give these concepts different colors for easy navigation. I click on this. I can also pen this field a bit so that I can see better the text. And then I'm going to edit this concept. So here you see several buttons to create and edit the specific body of knowledge. You can add, but now I'm going to edit this particular concept. And here you see the different fields. Here, for instance, the definition field that is being used to input the main text of which describes this concept. And then I can scroll down and you see several edit fields which also provide rich text and links, for instance. And this is also interesting. These are the learning outcomes that are stored in the same database. And I can add these particular learning outcomes to and link them to this specific concept. So I can say, okay, save, or now we'll do discard, not to mess up with actually our work. And let's, one of the final things I want to show you, if time allows this, is that we are still having this body of knowledge as a work in progress. And let's say radiometric calibration and correction. So here you see concepts related to our new domain, which was not yet there in the GI Need to Know project. And so these are concepts that relate to Earth observation. So these are very fresh new concepts. And here you see, for instance, a prerequisite relationship. And here you see subconcept relationships and proposed relations. So this again shows the work in progress. Now there are several things that I can do within this environment. What I can also say, okay, let me go to this particular concept. And then I say, okay, this particular area still needs to be elaborated, and I can put a note as one of the collaborators, say, okay, elaborate. And then I say to everybody, and then I add the comment. And so this is a way that I can collaborate with other experts within the project, so that they know, okay, we have to work on this particular concept together also within a certain working group. Okay, so then the last thing I want to show you here for the living textbook is the export function. So I can say data, and you see several menu items here, but the export is particularly interesting here. I can choose the type of export, and as you see, we are also working on linked data type format in RDF. And this is the format that we can choose. But what we use within the project is called simple linked node format, and then it will be exported in this JSON export to the other tool. So the other tool is then the one that I already showed you before in the slide. This is the actual real tool live. So it will have a different visualization, but these are the same concepts that have been created in the living textbook as I showed you before. So I can also say, okay, SDI, for instance, here, spatial data infrastructure, I get all the concepts that are related to this. And it works a bit in a similar way, although they are differently organized. So I can select here concept, and I can get the same description as was entered in the living textbook tool. And I can also choose for another version. That's this tool is then also used within the other tools of the EO4GEO project. I think that is what I wanted to show you. And yeah, I thank you very much for your attention. And I hope there are some questions in the chat.
Yeah. Yes, Rob, so your presentation was very interesting. So there are several very curious people that would like to know more, on one hand, on the access and use of the service body of knowledge, and on the other hand, on the collaboration and also the link with other communities that could do similar things. Now, I suggest that we, the different presenters, provide answer to those questions at the end of the presentations. So I suggest we now first have the presentation by Sven on the entire tool ecosystem, but then it's already seemed that we have a lot to discuss in the final part of our session. So Sven.
Yeah, I shared my screen.
Yes, I can see myself. I will stop.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, can you see the screen?
Yes, now it's the presentation. Now it's
okay, great. Yeah, thanks. So my name is Sven Castellijn. I'm from the University Jaume I in Castellón, Spain. And we are leading the development of the tool ecosystem in the EO4GEO project. So before I give you a demo of the tool, I will skip some parts because I think some parts have already been said and I don't have a lot of time. But I would like to explain you a little bit about the ecosystem of tools and how it was conceived. So it's a set of independent yet collaborating tools. So every tool can be used by itself, but also they are all perfectly working together. And the way that they are working together is by having the body of knowledge as a common shared vocabulary. So all our tools speak the same language, and that's how they become interoperable. That's how we can use one resource of one tool in another tool, and we can link things together. And I will give you an example of that later on. A little bit about the EO4GEO platform itself. So you see there in the center the body of knowledge, and is built on 4 pillars. The first pillar is the online availability. So we created an online repository, the body of knowledge is there, and it's openly available and usable by everybody. The second pillar is the fact that we use permanent URLs, or so-called permalinks. So this means that the body of knowledge itself, but also every concept, has a permanent URL, and everybody can refer to that. So this is conform the linked data principles. Then the third pillar is that the body of knowledge is programmatically accessible. So we provide an API, which is also open for everybody to use, and everybody can programmatically access the body of knowledge and thus build their own tools on top of the body of knowledge. And in fact, all our tools are built based on this API. And then finally, the fourth pillar is that we provide components for developers. So for example, the book visualization that Rob already showed you and that you will also see in our tools, this is available as a component. So if anybody wants to develop an application on top of the body of knowledge, they can use our API, they can use our components. It's a bit like Google Maps, a few lines of code, and you have the book visualization embedded in your own tool. So these are the pillars. So I will skip the platform tools. I think that Rob showed you the editing, searching, and visualizations. We have different options there. We'll see that also later. And the final layer are the end user tools. And we have some tools that we aim more at the educational sector, and other tools that we aim more at the supply sector. So at the educational sector, we have the curriculum design tool that allows us to define and explore educational offers, of course, always built and grounded in the body of knowledge. We have the occupational profile tools that allows us to define and explore occupational profiles. Then we have the job offer tool that allows us to define and explore job offers, possibly built on an occupational profile. And the final tool is the book matching tool, which allows us to compare any 2 resources that are based on the body of knowledge. So in other words, any of the resources that our other tools create, but also, in fact, any resource that is annotated according to guidelines that we made available, that is annotated with the body of knowledge. So that's the theoretical part that I went a little bit quickly, but let me show you some demo. Let me give you an idea. So here you see let me put it a little bit bigger. Yes. Okay. So here you see our landing page, and we have here this book visualization and search tool, which is openly available for everybody. And that's the tool that Rob has just showed you. And we can here browse around in the hierarchical relations of the body of knowledge. We can search. We have all the information. We have the versioning system. We can see the evolution of the concepts over time. And once a new version of the body of knowledge is available, it's uploaded here, and it's automatically available in our API, and it's automatically available in all our tools and in all external tools. Let me then go to the occupational profile tool. And I am here already logged in, but this is in fact also the same view that you see when you are an anonymous user. So read-only access is always available. And here we see a list of occupational profiles in the EO/GEO domain. You see that most of the profiles you see here, EO4GEO, are made by experts within our project. And these we can consider as prototypical profiles of people that are active in our domain. And so they contain the knowledge and the skills that this profile should possess to be able to do the job. Let's have a look, search for Inspire, and indeed we see here a profile defined Inspire Expert. So I can go to see the details of this profile, and I see indeed a description of this profile. I'll see the domain in which he's active, and then I see here the knowledge that such a person typically needs to possess, defined in terms of concepts of the body of knowledge. You also see that these concepts have different colors. So this means that they belong to different areas of knowledge within our body of knowledge. You have here an overview, a knowledge distribution of the global knowledge that this occupational profile has. And so we see, for example, that here web-based GI is 50% of the total knowledge defined for this Inspire Expert. And we have skills that this person needs to possess. And in this case, there are 2 skills defined. Explain how clearing houses, metadata, and standards can help facilitating spatial data sharing. So these skills actually come from also the body of knowledge, because in the body of knowledge, each concept has related skills defined. So if we add a concept, we automatically also get related skills, which then of course we can select the ones that we need or the ones that we don't need. And then finally, we also have transversal skills defined, which are not related to the particular domain, which we can say are cross-domain, like, for example, being a good communicator, having team skills, being able to work in team, this type of things. So I need to mention, of course, that this is work in progress. The body of knowledge is still evolving. So what you see here will be extended once we also extended the body of knowledge. Now, I'm logged in, I'm part of an organization, so I can also have my own, as you can see here, private occupational profiles. And these are occupational profiles that perhaps for the whole domain are not so important, but perhaps for my organization, they might be very important. So if my organization, for example, is a consultancy agency in data analytics, so then for me, a data analyst might be an important profile. And you see here that I defined here a data analyst profile, which for my company is relevant. So far, small overview of the occupational profile tool. So now I would like to go to the job offer tool. And so I'm again here logged in. And you see here the more or less the same view, the same interface. But now, instead of occupational profiles, we now have actual job offers here. And I can create a new job offer, or I can make a copy of an existing job offer and then, of course, customize it. Or I can also just have a look at the job offers that are already there. So let's have a look at my organization. And we see here that I have 2 job offers defined. And I have here one data analyst in climate change. Instead of making a new job offer, let's just edit it, because I simply don't have time to create a new one from scratch. Yeah, 1 second, okay. So let's just edit it, and we will see the same functionality as we would start from scratch, except that, okay, there is some information now pre-filled. So when I have a job offer, I can build this job offer based on a certain occupational profile. So maybe I should go to new job offer. Yeah, and here you see that I can I start from scratch. Yeah, but I can use an occupational profile as a template to start my job offer, and then of course I customize that. So, for example, here I see all the occupational profiles, so all the ones that are publicly available, but also the ones that are privately available in my company. So, for example, data analyst, the one that I showed before, so I can click that, and then automatically it fills all the general fields with the information that was available for this occupational profile. If I go down, I see that there is here some specific information, which is then, of course, specific for that particular job. Like, for example, for somebody full-time or part-time, the type of contract, the salary. So these are things that are really particular for that particular job. So these, of course, I need to fill in for each job offer separately. But now I can customize. So I start with my template of a data analyst, and I can customize that. So if, for example, the application domain, if that is somebody that is going to work in climate change, I can search here climate, and I find, okay, climate research, climate engineering. I can add that for this particular data analyst, I want somebody that has some experience in climate engineering, for example. The same with the knowledge, and the same with the skills. I can also customize that. So we see here the knowledge that I got from my occupational profile, the skills that I have from my occupational profile. Of course, I can customize this. I can remove skills if I think that for this particular job they are not necessary. I can also add some. So, for example, if here, well, let's take the same example, Inspire. So I see here in my graphical view. So note that this is this component I was talking about that every developer can just use, and it's immediately available. So I see that that when I search for Inspire, I get some things highlighted, and then of course I can go to this highlighted item. So let's click here on this one, and I see syntactic discovery. I can browse in my graphical view and see how exactly or where exactly this concept resides in the body of knowledge. Yeah? And I can, of course, go to another one, and I see GI organization at the European Commission. I can then go to this concept, see what is it about, yeah? And I can add additional knowledge for my particular job offer. So, for example, I could add, let's say, this one here. Yeah. And then, oh, for some reason, let's go back here. Yeah. So I can add it, and then it is added here. I don't know, meta. So the first one here, I added this one, and also, so it's added, and also the associated skills are also added here. So in this way, I can add additional knowledge to define this job offer really in terms of knowledge and skills that this person that I'm looking for needs to have. Of course, I can also always add a custom skill. If something that is relevant for me that is not present in the body of knowledge, I can just add that. And the same with transversal skills. So these were defined for the profile, but I have here a list of transversal skills. I can again search in this list. And I can add them. Team building was already defined. Meet commitments. Okay, I can add it. So maybe one word, I think it maybe it's important for this workshop about the vocabularies that we are using. So because you see here, in fact, different vocabularies being used. And for example, we have here the application domain. So, oh, sorry, this is the title, application domain. So we see here a list. So this is a list, the International Standard Classification of Education, Fields of Education and Training. For the transversal skills, the ones here, we are using the ESCO skill list. The European Skills, Competences, Qualifications, and Occupations. And so we have here the whole ESCO list. And then to define the level of knowledge, of expertise, we have here we use the European qualifications framework from 1 to 8. So we can define if somebody needs beginning knowledge or expert knowledge. Then, of course, for the knowledge, we use our own body of knowledge. For the skills, we use our own skills that are defined in our body of knowledge. And then here in the specific knowledge, we also still have some additional existing lists that we are using. So the data sets that are required, if he needs, for example, knowledge of or experience with Meteoset. And then also the tools, we get the tools from partly from Inspire, but also from the ESA open source tools list. So I will not go into further detail here, but then basically I can define this job offer. And then finally, this job offer looks like this, if I completely define it. Yeah. And then I can share this. I can copy the link and I can tweet that, or I can send it in an email. But I can also nicely download it as a PDF file. And then it's available here as a PDF. And you see all the information, but now in the form of a PDF. And I can mail that to somebody. If I still have time, I would very quickly like to show the last tool in just 2 minutes. And this is the tool. Yes, 2 minutes. This is the tool that allows us to compare resources. And I am here, so I have on the left side, I can select one resource of all our resources that are available, and on the right, I can select another resource. So let's start with job offers. So I have here the job offer that I just showed you. I select it, and I see here the knowledge that was required for that job offer. And now here I can select another resource with which I will compare it. So let's say that I want to compare it with educational offers and with master programs. I want to see which master programs offer as many as possible of the knowledge that I am actually asking for here. And I get here a list of all the master programs, and I can then select one. And I see here immediately a comparison. So I see here that there is actually no match. So this is not a good master program for me. I select here another one. And this is one that is offered by our university. And I see here that there is some overlap between the job offer on one side and what the master is offering in terms of teaching on the other hand. But there are, of course, also some things that are not matching. So here I see that the master is offering quite some concepts that are not required for the job. But also I see that the job has some requirements that are not being offered by this master program. So now, as a recruiter, I of course need to decide, like, okay, the knowledge that is missing here, like for example, climate change, is that something that expertise that we already have in our company, or does that matter to me that the person doesn't have this? So I have here a little bit of an overview. The very last thing is that the fact that we can in fact select any annotated resource, and I have here curriculum vitae, which is a Europass curriculum vitae. I have it here, so I blurred out the personal information, but this is a standard Europass curriculum vitae that has been annotated with the body of knowledge according to our guidelines. Then our tool understands these annotations, and you see here appearing the knowledge that is contained in this curriculum vitae that is overlapping, so that is in common with the job offer, but also the one that is not in common, and that the person has but the job offer doesn't specify, and on the other hand that the job offer asks for but the person doesn't have. So this is a little bit to give you a little bit an idea. We have other tools that I did not have time to explain here, like the curriculum design tool. But just to give you a little bit of an idea of the tools that we have and how the body of knowledge really at the heart, at the center of this ecosystem, provides interoperability between those tools. That's it, Glenn. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for the invitation, Sven. I remember that someone that would like to become a data analyst in climate change should register for your university. Nice example. No, but overall, very interesting presentation. I think the demos really demonstrated why we are doing all the work on the body of knowledge and why it can be useful for so many use cases. We received quite a lot of questions during the presentations. I think we will address them very shortly. But at the same time, let me first try to share my screen. I would also like to show or introduce to the participants the Slido questions we've prepared to also from our side collect some input feedback from them. I think it's a very straightforward, easy to use tool, very simple questions, just to hear the thoughts, to what extent people already were aware about the things we were doing, etc. So it's a small set of 6 questions, I think. Let me show, also the link is already in the chat box, but let me show it directly. So this is the link, can you all see it? I will. So if you go to slido.com and you add the code INSPIRE 2020, or you go to the link directly, and afterwards you select the ELISE EO4GEO vocabularies workshop, you will immediately see a set of 6 questions dealing with the content of our workshop. I think it's very easy, but we would like to invite you to complete these questions just for us to better understand your interest and your awareness and whether you would like to be involved in future activities. Now in the chat box we received, I think, some interesting questions on 2 major issues. The first issue or the first topic was about the access to the tools, but also the access to the underlying services. So maybe Rob, Danny, Mark, Sven, could one of you already briefly explain how that will be organized? So while the other participants try to complete the questionnaire, maybe we can take the question.
Okay, maybe I will start very quickly in general terms, and if there are very practical things that can be added by the other colleagues. We decided with EO4GEO that the BOK and the tools will be reusable by other communities. So one, access to the tools is one thing, but it has been said also that we will provide APIs so that developers can use, for example, the BOK, but also can connect to our tools to further build other tools or extend the tools, etc. So that's basically the philosophy. So it's quite an open environment, but we decided also to release those only when we have a first consolidated version of the BOK, which is expected around July. So after that, then we need to connect and test that the tools are working on this consolidated version. So let's say that by the end of the holiday period, end of August, early September, we will communicate, and we also will have a call to the community to contribute to the testing and to get feedback from the community on those tools and on the BOK, etc. That's the general principles.
Anyone that would like to add on that, more specifically with particular tools, particular services? Anyone from the EO4GEO team?
Well, Glenn, I would like to say that the tools are available in view mode. But nobody can at the moment register, and so most of the functionality like creating occupational profiles or job offers, etc., is not yet available. But as Danny said, so once we have a major release of the body of knowledge, this will be available. But people can already have a look just at what is already there and just browse a little bit to see what we have.
Yeah, maybe from my side, from the Living Textbook tool. So as I introduced it, it is also available for other purposes in education. So we do have a demo version on site at our website. So that can be shared already, but the content of the book, as Danny said, for EO4GEO has a later release.
Okay, and then there was another set of questions, several questions from different people on the link integration with the other body of knowledges. How I think on one hand it will work technically, but also how we see the collaboration, the governance, the potential opportunities to really work together with other initiatives, other communities. So I think this workshop is a first example. There are also some ideas or also already some ongoing collaboration with the US colleagues involved in similar activities, but does one of you have more concrete ideas, suggestions on how the collaboration with other similar or related initiatives could take place? It could be organized. One of the presenters has some ideas on that, or already some observations, comments, or because we received several questions on that. So also technically, for instance, can other communities easily build further on the tools we provide? How could that process be implemented, the collaboration on a technical level, but also the actual collaboration? Maybe someone that could say a few words about that?
Glenn, I can elaborate a little bit on that. So one of the major problems that we had when trying to connect to, for example, other body of knowledges is the fact that they are not programmatically available. So many body of knowledges are available, for example, as a PDF or somewhere on a website, but this is of course problematic if you want to automatically connect to it, and especially if then changes are happening to this other ontology. So this is also why we came up with this ecosystem, and we really wanted that people can access and can programmatically access and use it in any way that they want. This is also why we use this linked data principle. So we are compatible with all this linked open data sources that are available over there. So we did our best to be available. On the other hand, so yes, is what I say. We also ask for other communities if they have some interesting vocabularies or something to make it available in a way that other people can consume it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
In addition to that, I think it's important to know that EO4GEO, on demand of the call, is also building a long-term action plan and strategy. So the aim is not to finish this project, by the way, that will be end of next year, and then to have tools and a body of knowledge at a particular moment in time, and then it becomes outdated. It's not maintained. That's not the idea. So the ecosystem, there is an ecosystem of tools, but there's also an ecosystem of partners, the network of networks. We want to continue the work, and we are looking into this governance, into a business model, financing, also ways to make it mainstream or more mainstream, so that others are reusing what we have developed or build further upon that. So in the hope also that the other related communities like the cartographic community, the surveyors community, etc., can also build further and relate to what we have done or are doing. So therefore, also the idea of being open so that others can also build further on that. But it's correct, most of the existing box, which are relevant, by the way, are usually not in the same way accessible, even though the content is very interesting. So that's certainly an issue.
Yeah, maybe another note is that, like what Dennis says, is there are, of course, other purposes and applications of this body of knowledge. In this project, we do show particular emphasis on, for instance, curriculum design and job offers. So, like what Sven already explained, but there are multiple applications out there that can indeed make use of the same concepts as they are generic in the sense of geoinformation and Earth observation.
There was one particular question from Ann Johnson on the size of the areas in one of the tools, and they say it seems like they are really large for some areas and small for others. Does it mean that some areas are more important, or do they just need to be further developed? I think it's about the areas in one of the tools. So maybe I think Sven.
I think no, it's nothing about the tools. It's about some groups are more active than other groups because the body of knowledge is developed by a network of experts organized in different working groups. And it should be said that certain working groups are further in its development than others. But I guess over the months and certainly towards next year, I hope that all the sub areas are equally developed, although there might be differences, of course, in the number of concepts under each sub area. But it reflects more the dynamics of the working groups than a final stage or something.
Yeah, practically the size identifies the number of sub-concepts, especially in the living textbook. So the more sub-concepts, the bigger the concept looks like at this moment. And this is, of course, related to the work done by the working groups.
Okay. I think that also partly answers the question from Robin Smith on how the governance of the current work on the body of knowledge is organized. So like Danny and Mark explained, it's organized in a set of working groups that we try to align, we try to coordinate as much as possible. There are some guidelines on how each of them should work, but to a certain extent, there are also still differences in how they operate, the level they operate. So, but we are already behind schedule. What I would like to do is just to briefly show you the results of the poll, the 6 questions we've prepared. I think you can all see my screen. Let me know if it's not the case. So about the question on the awareness. So here, the majority of the participants, they already heard events about the ELISE knowledge transfer initiative. I think that's already good news. Some of them are already actually using it, not a small group, but some people are already using it. Let me see how I can go. Here it seems that we have two big groups or three. Some of them heard about the EO4GEO project Skills Alliance. Some of them, I think those are the project participants and some other people involved in the work. And then you had a big group that was not involved at all. So I think they were not aware about it. So I think this session was already valuable to inform them and to maybe engage them in the future activities. The actual background of the organization of the participants today, so the majority were in a certain way from the Inspire SDI implementation community, and then we had some people from the other domains. Again, this is about the added value or the fact to what extent these different vocabularies could be useful. So you see a big group of the participants is really interested, or they are convinced of the use of or the usefulness of the body of knowledge, but also the Inspire implementation and use vocabularies are considered to be valuable by a quite large group of the participants. And then would it be useful? I think here again the answers: would it be useful to use multiple integrated vocabularies and tools too? For what precisely? And here you see especially the preparation of education and training is very interesting use cases, but also the other potential uses of the different vocabularies and tools are considered to be valuable. And the final questions, I think this is most important. There are some people that showed an interest in to be involved more actively in the future. To do that, I just would like to show these slides. So I think the different communities, they can be accessed. They can be, if you want to know more about them, or if you want to express your interest to contribute, you can just directly contact the people or check the websites, and they both have a Twitter account. You could also use to follow their activities, but also to be involved in the communication. I will now stop sharing. Is there one of the participants or the presenters that would like to say something about the results? Just a final invitation for you to say a few words. If not, I think most important is that this video recording of the session will be made available on the Inspire conference website, but also the presentations individually will be available. And like I said, on both the ELISE webpage communication tools and also for EO4GEO, you will find quite a lot of material on both projects, actions. So having said that, I would like to thank you all for your participation. I think we had also a very valuable discussion today, quite a lot of questions, so mainly dealing on how can we be involved, how can we access at a certain stage the services, the tools, which I think is an interesting observation, but also the collaboration with other communities. It's definitely something to be further explored in the following months. So from my side, thanks also to all the speakers for their presentations. Also, thank you for paying attention to the time limit, the time schedule. We're just a little bit behind schedule, but I don't think it's too problematic. So thank you very much. Have a nice evening. And if you would like to be involved in one of the two projects or both of them, please let us know. Bye.
Okay, I'll stop recording now.
Yes.